Okay, in this video, I want to go over your drafts as a big group, so giving you general feedback and tips on how to make sure you get an A for the final revision. The first tip is study, study, study the grading rubric. So many of you struggled in the first draft, and now here's your chance to bump up, right, to get better. So I guarantee your grade will improve if you follow my feedback. If you're unsure of how to do it, you need to reach out to me, email me, and we'll schedule a meeting so that you can best understand how to do this. I sincerely, truly, actually want every single student in this class to be able to get an A. So here's what you need to do with these awesome red arrows, what you need to do in order to get that A. So if your theory of postmodern sovereignty is consistent with the legal reasoning and the interpretations from the case and the social science reading that you provide, you're going to get an A. If you clearly state what you think sovereignty should mean today and who should actually hold that sovereign authority, you're going to get an A. If the readings that you chose are clearly related to your theory and you explain how, you're going to get an A. And if the case you chose is clearly related to your theory and you explained how, you're going to get an A. So if you do those four things, you're going to get an A. And so all of the answers before that, right, all of the B level answers, the C level answers, the D levels, they're just not doing that, right? So usually it's because it's unclear, or you didn't really understand the reading, or maybe you picked the wrong one. You should have picked a different one that makes sense. And so if you need to change your reading, or you need to change your case for your final revision, you should definitely do that. Something to keep in mind, even if you had a C+ on your first draft here, if you got a B+, that would jump you up to a B-. So even getting that B range, you're going to improve your grade. You got a B, then you got a chance now to get an A in the class. So you should really think about, taking your time and doing this right. Now I want to warn you, okay? I largely ignored this for the drafts, although I tried to make sure I told each of you I don't need to know what the internet says. I can also Google search, and I can see out of millions and millions of wrong answers or other people's opinions. What I'm looking for is your theory. I want to see that you're applying the learning from this class to your own concepts. This shows me that you're understanding sovereignty, not that you're able to copy and paste from the internet. So you'll see that the one that's in bold there, I noticed a lot of those answers early on in the semester. I don't want to see those answers because, first of all, it doesn't make any sense. Second of all, I have no idea who or what Americal Stali is. But, you should think about, we're not looking for what sovereignty has meant over the last thousands of years. We're looking for what do you think it should mean. It's a very popular concept within law and politics and government and criminal justice, but it's very poorly defined. And so I'm looking for you to do that work and for you to show me that you're thinking about it. That's really the main drive of this assignment. So there's three general ideas that scholars have noticed that people tend to talk about law. None of them is right or wrong. This is just the way people think about law. So you want to think about, how do you think about legality? So some people think, they feel as if they're before the law, as if, the law is up there somewhere, and they're going there and they're looking up at a judge, and the judge is going to judge them, and they're going to use ordered, rational rules and procedures that are part of a hierarchy or a chain of command. Okay, and that's how they see legality. That's how they see rules of law. Some people, on the other hand, they think about law as a game. And if you play within those rules, then you're going to win. If you don't play within those rules, or you don't play as well as your opponent, then you're going to lose. And that's being with the law. And then finally, some people say there's nothing you can do. You're going to lose no matter what happens, or that kind of song, I fought the law and the law won. So they resist the law, or they feel like they're up against the law, or the law is always after them. And so they don't see it as an objective, ordered system. So again, None of these is right. None of these is wrong. This is how humans experience the law. And so you need to try to think deeply about what you want the law to be, what you'd imagine it should be in a perfect world, and then what does it appear to be based on your own experiences and your own observations and all the contradictions I've showed you in this class. And then you need to resolve those contradictions. Explain how your theory is going to address those problems. Okay, don't just say, some people will argue. I know this is something that you must be doing in your other classes. Some people will argue that this, but I think this. That's not what you're doing in this class. You have to resolve that conflict. You have to be able to show how is your idea actually going to address that problem. That's what legality has to do. It has to close the gaps. It has to resolve conflicts. It's not about politics on TV where I just say I disagree with you. That's not how law or legality works in real life. Now, the next level, which I'm hoping you'll be better at now that I've given you feedback, is that your story about legality is going to determine where you think sovereignty should lie. So I kind of showed you here that if you said we the people, then that's going to be in the second category. That's going to be with the law, because you think that people are participating, and that's the same thing for majority rules. Whereas the far right, for minority harm, you're seeing law as being arbitrary, it's capricious, it's being used against minorities, and so you want it to be placed with those minority groups so that they can fight back. And so that's against or resisting the law. If you're thinking that law should be a universal, it should be a command, then you're really thinking about it as like a king or a dictator, the police officers having authority, or Congress as legislation. And then if you think that it's kind of judges are kind of in between, or they're trying to resolve these conflicts between majority and minority, then that's with, right? That's playing it as if it were a game. And then that's kind of the same thing for God or gods, meaning that religion, because there's not one idea of what God is or what gods are, then those all have to be kind of competing with each other in what would be kind of a game. You could also put up another. I mean, these are the ideas that I've heard from people and I've read from people over my 20 plus years studying this. But if you come up with a new idea, or you think that there could be another place sovereignty should lie, you might look at stuff like cybernetics, or some interesting people have looked at mushroom networks and how they share information. In other words, there's other scientific ways of thinking about this if you want to go down that road. The idea here is that you probably it'd be a good idea to spend a couple sentences saying, this is what I think, and this is why it's different than a different point of view of sovereignty. But don't try to combine them, because you're going to get confused, and then you're going to confuse me too. Now, don't summarize the readings. I know, again, that's something that you do in lower level classes, right? When you're just starting out college. Later on, professors don't want you to do that. We want you to apply the readings. So what's the main point of that reading? Or what is the point that you're taking from the reading and trying to show me something that you're seeing about it, some insight that you have that shows me that you're understanding the important concepts from this class, not that you're able to comprehend readings. That you should be able to do by the time you get to a class like this. So it has to be from both a case, so writing from a judge, and then also from a social scientist, a social reading. So the DeLand Key of Law reading, that's from a social scientist, right? That's not a judge. Anderson versus King County, that's from a judge. And so you have to show me that you understand the difference between those two and how you're applying them, even though there's probably similarities, but there will also be differences because they're different people coming from different points of view. Now, you can use more than one case or reading if you think it helps make your point, if it helps strengthen your argument. And so that's what you should do. The point here is that you're showing me that you're using quotes and examples from the readings that are able to show me you understand the concepts. So I'm pulling out one example from a student who did a really good job of this on the draft. They decided that Baker versus Carr really helped them make their point, and I agree with them. They used quotes and examples from that case to argue for minority harm, and then they used the social science reading Quest for Legal Sovereignty to back up the things that they were saying. Now, finally, the best practices of any papers, okay, and I want to be really clear about this. I've been on a couple meetings this semester where a lot of professors are starting to report you for what they're called cheating. So I want to make sure that you know what this is and that you avoid it, not just in my class, but in all of your classes. I think a lot of you are doing things you think you're supposed to do, or you don't know that you're not supposed to do these things. So really super easy is in the document that I uploaded for the final instructions. You just click the link and there's a 10-minute exercise that helps you understand the difference, and so that you know how to summarize and paraphrase and quote, and that way you don't get in trouble for plagiarism. Now, it's a expectation that by this time, you should have probably learned it in other classes, but by this time you should now be using either the APA 7th edition in-text citations or the MLA footnotes and references page. I don't have a preference. I know, for example, that Professor Chapman, in the classes he teaches, he wants you to use MLA. So if you've taken Professor Chapman and you've practiced with that, then definitely show me that you know how to use those citations. It's pretty common in criminal justice journals to use MLA, and also in behavioral and sociology journals. And so it's a good skill for you to have, especially if you're transferring. If you've only been taught how to use APA citations, don't feel bad, right? Use those APA citations. It's probably just important they show me you know how to do one of those. I did not emphasize this in the first draft because it was just a draft. But now this is a final college paper, and so you should show me that you know how to write a college paper. Now, the main thing to kind of think about to avoid plagiarism, right, which is a very fancy legal phrase for cheating. The bad thing that some students are doing, which I saw a lot of early in the semester, is you're copying and pasting. And that's just danger, danger, danger. You're going to get yourself in big trouble eventually. And some of the consequences for cheating, for plagiarizing, are you can actually get kicked out of school. You could even get banned from going to CUNY schools for like a year or 2 years, depending on how severe the process is and how aggressive your professor is. The other thing to think about, though, is that if you just use your own language to explain the concepts, right? The concepts in academic papers are not unique, right? There's nothing new under the sun. The way they say them, that can be, and that can be a signal that you're copying and pasting, right? We want to see that you understand, not that you're able to repeat, right? And so try to think about it this way, at least for my class and some other classes. Speak like you would to a close friend or a relative. In other words, don't be afraid to use sayings, phrases, however you speak, to make your point. I'm smarter than you might think I am. I can figure it out. I have a pretty wide knowledge of how different people speak in different contexts. The fancy word for this, if you want to look it up online, is code meshing. And we do this all the time, right? Pop culture, the news, right? Lots of different places. Sometimes in college settings, professors go down a very strange road where they want you to talk like them. I don't want you to do that because I don't think it's a very good idea, and I don't think it's a good practice. And so again, speak like you would to a close friend or relative. If you speak another language, and so in addition to that, right? So speak how you normally speak. Say what you need to say. But also, if you speak another language and you feel like a phrase means something very particular in that language, just write it in that language. I can look up the translation. I can figure out the context. I don't mind doing it. I enjoy doing it. I have a couple student research assistants that this is what we do. So if that makes more sense to you, I've done this multiple times in classes and I've learned a lot. There are certain languages that have a different context for certain concepts like law, phrasing, sovereignty, issues that are not common among all cultures. And so again, use your own language. Now, be as clear as and to the point as you can be. Don't tell me things 3 or 4 times, right? Tell me them once and try to tell them as clear as you possibly can. So imagine you're speaking to a friend who really just wants to understand what it is you're trying to say. I usually edit my own sentence three or four times. Right? I just finished a chapter I sent out to the publisher, and I spent the weekend just going over my sentences just to make sure, is it clear, right? I know what I'm trying to say, but I have to put myself in the mindset of somebody else. Do they understand, right, based on the words I'm choosing and the way I'm ordering them, right? Does it make sense to more people than just me? So one good practice is to have a friend, coworker, classmate, or a family member look at your draft and see what they say about it. And then finally, send me a Word document or a PDF document to my email and keep a record for yourself. I know that there are other ways of submitting your papers, but in this class, I prefer the email for a variety of reasons that are probably way too boring to you, but that just makes it sure that we all have access, that we all have a record, and that I'm able to actually open the thing in my ordinary way, and that I'm not trying to all of us are trying to learn a new piece of technology. Okay, so those are the best practices to make sure you get an A. So I want to make sure you're getting the content, you're doing the grading rubric, you're following the instructions, and then you're writing a college paper.